the Artsy sister, and we're reading Saturnastra Chalon. This is chapter 3, and right now it's 9:51 a.m. in the world of the book. It is well noted that a city is a reflection of its current and past ruler, and this is well noted in the city like society. And while most medieval hosts had a martial look, society was feminine, and there was plenty of ornamentation that served a military function. And the stronghold of La Divina was not a castle, but a system of high-roof pavilions. Should the walls ever be breached, the pavilions could easily be looted, and this had never occurred, not once in the long 300-year history of the city. And as for the city itself, it had a nice orderly grid pattern, and there were 4 districts with 4 rows of houses or apartments, and the main roads went from north to south, all leading to the ornamental gates of the pavilions. And surrounding the pavilions were groups of lancer knights with colorful attires over leather armors. And the districts were not separated by castes as other cities. A new house or building was added slowly over time, maintaining the orderly grid pattern. And when it came time to expanding the walls, they were expanded southward, though society developed a long way, with the newer houses located the farthest away from the pavilions. And despite the distance, if one stood at one end of the main roads, one could easily see the pavilions. All of the streets had lampposts, each 7 meters in height with 34 meters distance from one another. Protruding for each lamp was a stand with a hanging orchid, and when the eventuality that one died, it was quickly replaced. And each ruler of society had its own particular favorite flower, and the current ruler liked orchids. Chalon too was partial to orchids, and his eyes could not help but look up whenever he was making his way towards the market. And as a result of the distracting orchids, the ground in society had been recently cladded with cobblestone, and the change had been welcomed by pedestrians, but the downside was the noise pollution, and it was common to see in certain houses people adding hay to deafen the sound made by those stones. And before then, the roads were made of macadam, while the sidewalks were made of bricks, and to deal with the noise pollution, and carriage and horse rides were disallowed after 10 p.m. And this was usually the time La Imperia went to bed, so it made sense. So like everyone no more traffic when the queen is asleep. Anyone caught breaking this rule had his horse confiscated. The person who had to perform the menial jobs in the warehouse for about, and the person had to perform menial jobs in the warehouse for about 2 weeks. While most towns had dungeons, pillories, stocks, whipping posts, and gallows, Asari had a workhouse. Chalon had never seen the workhouse, nor was he certain as to where it was located. However, one of the men for his clan, who had been arrested, came back with plenty of chilling tales that nobody believed, but Chalon knew them to be true. Chalon had mixed opinions about that place, and it wasn't as if prisoners were forced to do anything they did not want to. Still, what the warehouse offered was not promising either, and those that did not want to go to the warehouse were sent to the mines instead. And Chalon walked quickly towards the market to get his main chores out of the way, and he stumbled a moment, and then he took a step back. And it was bad luck to stumble with your left foot. Anyhow, he looked down and he noted a name on a brick. It said Jesse Vista, Dragono Sassari, and it was then when he noted that other bricks had the names of people, and this distinction among the brick pattern only occurred in the other pavilions and in the military apartments. Chalon looked down at the brick that he had stumbled over, and he made a mental note of the name for future references. And this time he walked with an even pace, and he lowered his eyes to abstract himself in the history of Jesse Vista. And we only started collecting observations on the locals recently, and aside from the history books, we did not have any first-hand visual information on Jesse Vista. And a query on the name was sent to the window watchers, and we will have the entire history of this lady in a couple of years if we're lucky. Chalon stopped at a nearby street corner, and he looked left and then right before making the effort to cross the street. And just when he got serious about crossing the road, a person behind him pushed past him running, and Chalon narrowed his eyes for a moment, and then he ran straight ahead to push the fellow. And it was a good thing he did, because a carriage had done a sharp turn, nearly running over Chalon and the fellow pedestrian. The man, not bothering to give his cents, instead he spat Chalon's shoes before continuing on his way. In response to this insult, Chalon jump-kicked the fellow on the shoulder, and this made the man stumble to the floor a bit dazed from the striking his head against the pavement. Chalon then wiped his boot against the jacket of the man, and Chalon then put back his hood before returning on his way. The guards on the other side of the street clapped with approval. The guards of society took honor dueling rather seriously, as such they tended not to interfere whenever a duel was in progress. Speeding a person was typically a type of challenge, and if the person did not step up, he was deemed a coward. Another fun way to start a duel employs the backhanded salute, and there is also the ever popular slapping someone in the face with a glove. And Chalon neither knew nor had the intention of learning of the people and their ways. He was single-minded to a point with regards to his current task, and he had passed by 2 houses before stopping at one, and there was a nice aroma coming from the kitchen, and he would have stopped to eat there, but he already had breakfast, and he was coming for any local houses to work as makeshift restaurants or tea houses. And one could just walk up to any that had an open sign on the window, and you ate what was being made, or you went elsewhere. And most homes specialized in a particular dish, and for this house in particular, Chalon was interested in their chocolate pecan tartlets, those little tiny pies. And he scented the air, and he smelled this time a chocolate coconut pecan pie coming straight out of the oven. Had he been his brother Chalon would have gotten inside there and eaten the pie and not pay. Still, he had some self-respect, and he tried to avoid violence whenever possible. God bless the little saint. In the end, Chalon tucked his stomach in, and he made a mental note to come back later for the pies. At the end of this small block, he found the marketplace. And the markets were different in society, not one to enjoy having the streets crowded. La Divina demanded that a roads be clear for traffic, and it was the official reason, though the reality is that the ladies thought that the markets ruined the aesthetics of the city, and for the reason all businesses had to set up shops indoors, and this is where the large apartments came in, and there was in this section of the city had been transformed from homes to businesses, which is particularly larger, sharing an indoor space with a maid. And the merchant guild had arranged in such a fashion that each building had an overall theme, and the apartment complex with sword on the entrance dealt with items of war. What was considered war goods were the armor, swords, potions, and the raw materials to make them. The library was also found there as well, and aside from selling normal books, the libraries there sold spell books and magical paraphernalia. And it was the largest apartment complex with 8 floors and a smithy in the basement. It had 2 stairs that served as entrance, and the indoor was dark with the small open windows for light. And the hallways were even more dimly lit, and it got a little brighter depending on the lighting arrangement of each tenant. And those with more money could afford rooms with more than one window. And other businesses had torn down walls to expand the size of their showrooms. And there was a commonality here among all of the apartment businesses, and on the exterior, the only hint of the nature of the apartments came in the form of signs, and they were usually hung beneath each window, and this gave people who were passing by a general idea of the location of each type of store. And the most expensive stores were located on the first floor and in the basement, while the cheaper enterprises were found in the top floors, and had the landowners been wise, he would have done the opposite. Door-to-door salesmen were tolerated, but only insomuch as they did not use a cart or a wagon to form a stationary temporary shop. If the cars lingered for more than 20 minutes, the salesman would receive a fine, and after 7 fines, repeated offenders were usually sent to the workhouse for about a month. And the first place Chalon visited was found inside the war market, and on the first floor was the library, and aside from selling books, the owner lent a couple of stones out for a fee. And if the person liked the book, they were welcome to buy it. Time, bro?
14 minutes.
The lending fees were a small pittance, and any books not returned on time were declared stolen, and so the thieves were taken to the warehouse for a month. And it is for the reason that all the books ever lent were returned on time. Chalon stood before the daughter of the owner, who was managing the business for the moment, and she had the same name as her father, Jules Breach. And they hailed from the family of courtiers, but they had recently diversified into books. Lady Breach looked up from her book for a moment to stare at Chalon. Disinterested, she returned to reading before saying, "Magic terms are on the back." Chalon came to stand before her with the counter standing between them, and he slapped it a little with his palm to get her attention. "Sign, sign," she said. "What?" Chalon wrote on his chalkboard, "Ingredients." The maiden squinted her eyes, and then she said, "Can you write that with a normal print?" Chalon wrote again, "Ingredients." This time he did not use the cursive he was so proud of, and Lady Bridge nodded and then said, pointing to the right, "They are on the back cabinets to the left." Chalon went in the direction that the girl had pointed to, and he found instead some cooking books. And after walking along the walls of the cabinets, he found that indeed what she meant the left. And this may seem like the bridge being a douche, but remember that some people get left and right hands confused on a regular basis. Chalon knew this and thus did not mind the mixed messages, and he found the cabinet with the weird-looking ingredients, and most of them were not used for spellcasting. They were just odd-looking, and so were thrown in there just for kicks. And the reserved item Chalon picked up was a chameleon inside a jar of preserves. He shook his head sadly when he noted the poor fate of the little chameleon, and most spell components could easily be substituted by crystals, wood carvings, or flower petals. After pushing back a few of the front rows, he noticed a different jar filled with shark fins and another with different types of animal eyes. Eyes too were gimmicky and useless ingredients, but necromancers had a thing for eyes. It was a popular belief that eyes were the windows to the soul. As such, eyes were highly prized for summoning purposes. This was another common fallacy. Chalon remembered his short list, and he got the jar of eyeballs and the one with shark fins. And he also took the little chameleon, who was not needed for anything. Lady Bridge looked beneath the jars to check the name and the price of the good, and then she looked through the ledger to make certain that the prices had not been tampered with. When all was satisfied, she said to Chalon, "It is going to be 20 pieces of silver." Chalon paid her with 20 pieces of silver. The girl looked at each coin one by one and even tasted a couple to make certain that they were real. And despite being real silver coins, the girl noted that the design of one of the coins was different. All of the silver coins in the kingdoms had the visage of King Bersamet on one side and the profile of a lovely lady on the other. Chalon's silver coin, however, featured the profile of a young maiden with her hair blowing in the wind, and her eyes were looking at the word freedom. On the other side, it had a cool rune pattern with a sword in the middle. Around it had the date, which read 2097, and the words that read, "Listen to all, follow none." Lady Bridge accepted the coin after much scrutiny. Like many girls her age, she had a collection of something. In her case, she collected art currency. She always enjoyed the visit of foreigners, and they were her main supplier of strange coins. And these coins were usually acquired by grave robbing, and it was a common in the old days to bury the dead with some legal tender. And it was a common belief that the dead had no need for money. A lot of foreign necromancers just like to loot the graves. After accepting this payment, Lady Bridge asked Chalon, "Do you want a bag for your purchase?" Chalon shook his head in response, and then he placed the items beneath his long row sleeves. Lady Bridge observed this motion with keen interest, and there did not seem to be any type of pouches containing under Chalon's sleeves, and yet the item was out of sight. And before she could formulate her inquiry, Chalon walked out of the store. He had taken the second entrance of the shop, and it led him to the internal hallway dimly lit by candlelight. And to his left and to his right were other curiosity stores. However, Chalon decided to make his way towards the staircase to get the second item on the list. And the following store was in the basement, and it was simply the smithy. And while opening the door, another fellow was exiting it, and he smacked the iron door against Chalon's hand. And the person leaving the store noticed Chalon, but he pretended not to notice him. Chalon was a bit compelled to strike the man with something heavy, but his attention was distracted by something else. The kiln was heaving, and as the unpaid apprentice added more coal to the forge, and Chalon noted that the man hammering away at the sword, trying to shape it, and it had a nice quarter moon shape, and the part that was already cold had an interesting shimmering aspect about it. Time, bro?
9 minutes, 4 seconds.
Based on the shimmering store, there were faint traces of obsidian and a pint of zirconia. Alon would have analyzed the weapon more, but the apprentice asked, "What do you want?" Chalon brought his chalkboard and he drew the picture of knife he had come to purchase, and the apprentice wiped the sweat from his brow, and he came closer. He squinted his eyes to look at the picture painted in white against the black background, and then he walked over to an armory and he picked up one of the daggers, which he handed to Chalon to sharp away. The blacksmith snorted and said, "What are you doing, you fool?" The apprentice hunched his shoulders and said, "I am fulfilling the order, sir." "You can't just give a knife to someone from the sharp edge, you fool. Put the dagger in one of the spell leather pouches and then give it to him," said the blacksmith. So like he just handed him the knife like this. So you're gonna cut someone, you freaking lunatic, you know? Like by the hand, by the sharp end. The apprentice opened a different armory and he found a flat leather pouch and he placed the dagger within before handing it to Chalon again. And the lad did the same thing for the 3 other daggers and for the straight sword that came with an ornamental scabbard. After getting all of these items, Chalon proceeded to put them under his sleeves, and the apprentice asked, "How do you do that?" "Magic, stupid," said the blacksmith flatly. Chalon made his way out of the stuffy basement and out into the street, and it was a wonder to him how they did not succumb from monoxide poisoning. Still, dwarven people tended to have a higher tolerance for carbon monoxide than the average human. And before heading to a different apartment shop, he saw a traveling salesman with his little cart. And the cart had a lot of jars with sweets and candy, and the man was being trailed by a bunch of street ragamuffins and a little barons eager to be satisfied of their sweet tooth. And the price of the candies were fair, and even those with meager earnings could afford a sweet or two. The candy that was often the most coveted was a licorice cake, and it was like a round coin with a stamp decorating on one side, and the stamp was the wax seal of an old fallen noble family. The owner of the shop was in no way noble. He had acquired the ring from a pawn shop, and this traveling candy seller in particular was called Frank Ponte, and he was a bit of an overweight fellow who would take bites out of his own merchandise from time to time, and he would have been fat if he did not spend 12 hours a day dragging his cart all over society. He dragged it by himself because he could not afford a horse, and the sound of the bells of his little cart reminded Chalon of one of those little ice cream sellers from ancient times. Chalon patiently waited in line, and one of the smallest kids said, "Aren't you a little old to be eating candy?" Chalon naturally said nothing, and one of the kids behind Chalon made a motion to steal his purse, and when the child touched the purse, he flinched and pulled his hand away. Chalon grinned with contempt. The other 2 kids who noticed the irresistible lure also tried to rob Chalon, and their hands too were repelled by magic, and the one on the purse was a simple taser. Like you touch it and you get tased. And one of the kids started crying, and for this Chalon allowed him to go ahead of him. The kid refused to cut in the line, returning whence he came, and it was interesting to note that these would-be-thieves were one of those little barons. And it was not too uncommon for people with money to shoplift and to pickpocket from time to time. It discovered they usually paid a large sum of money to avoid any jail time, and sometimes the out-of-court settlers were 10 times the amount worth of the stolen item. And the long and short of it is that boy children need better hobbies than shoplifting. Time, bro?
5 minutes, 20 seconds.
Since the line was moving quickly, Chalon did not need to support the brass company for much longer, and after a short 15-minute wait, he was able to face the shopkeeper. The candy salesman, Frank Ponte, all professional, said, "What will it be, son?" Chalon pointed at one of those flat licorice candy, and then he held up the number 7. And as a traveling salesman, he had seen it out, and as such, he was not restrained by Chalon's vow of silence. The salesman placed those candies in a brown bag before closing it. He asked, "Anything else?" Chalon pointed to some brown-colored tear candy, and it had a nice glistening quality to it, and it was made of combining sugar, rose water, ground almonds, and lemon juice. And then he pointed to some sugar plums and some pennies, P-E-N-Y-D-E-S. The sugar plums were made of pieces of plum dipped in the soft sugar and combined with rose water. As for the pennies, they were made with brown sugar, rice flour, eggs, vanilla, cinnamon, and sugar cane. And to this Chalon had up the numbers 17, 11, and 2. And the total number of candies was 37. And this request caused the brown paper bag to be almost full to the top. And Frank gingerly folded it up to close it, and without thinking too much on the matter, Frank said, "That would be 21 gold silver coins and 9 bronze coins. Frank was always good at math, and the currency system in the kingdom was not too complicated. About 10 bronze coin was worth 1 silver coin, and 1,000 silver coins was worth 1 gold coin. And since Verdagueron at the time controlled most of the mines, it was pretty hard to smith counterfeits, and other coins shared the imperceptible impurity that made it taste different than the pure bronze, silver, and gold. And the impurity was shared among all the 3 different coins, and the secret ingredient was kept under string lock and key. And despite all of the secrecy, it is common knowledge among our people that the additive to the coin was nickel. And nickel was not widely harvested, and as such the local knowledge of such an element was severely limited. Like the king would add a secret ingredient to the coin in order to prevent counterfeiting, because it would make the coins taste differently. So since the locals didn't know what the secret ingredient was, it was almost impossible to create counterfeit coins. Chalon reached under his sleeve and he pulled out his fistful of 21 coins and bronze coins, and he placed them over the counter before reaching again to acquire the rest of the money. And once all of the money was accounted for, Frank finally handed Chalon his sweets. And with his purchase on hand, Chalon proceeded to enter the next apartment market. And the doorway had dainty flowers painted over it, and the window advertised featured natural goods like flowers, fish, and meat. And the first couple of floors had the flowers that were on sale, and on the basement floor was the fish market, and on the top floors were the butchers. And the first thing that Chalon noted was the smell of fish. And despite being surrounded by flowers, the pungent smell of almost rotting fishes seemed to cling to the walls. And after taking a single whiff of his surroundings, Chalon lowered his hood over his head and even further till it completely covered his face. And on top of his hood, he had an ornamental eye, and inside a hand of power. And you know those hands that count with 3 fingers and 2 thumbs. They were quite popular with the magic children back in the old days, and the hand itself was decorated with small beads, and they formed swirling acanthus patterns, and the border and background beads were orange while the acanthus bead was white. And as for the eye, it had a purple color, and most evil eyes tended to be dark and baby blue. However, felt purple created a nice contrast, so the evil eye was always purple. Time, bro?
1 minute, 30 seconds.
Alright, let's just leave it here. Bye-bye and God bless.